Good morning, everybody. It's Marty the JavaScript Party. No Rhett this morning. It is Tuesday, November 25th. I think it's probably like, I don't know, 55 degrees, 50 degrees Fahrenheit outside. It's raining pretty hard too, which is nice because, you get nice fresh air. I see that my mic is picking up audio, so I'm not doing that silly thing where I like to create a video that doesn't have any sound on it. So that's a thing that is not going to happen in this video, it appears. And I'm just waiting for my Angular transpiler to communicate to finish updating. Um, so right now we're working on a new feature, and one thing that like if up until yesterday afternoon, I thought, oh, what I'm doing here is um, I'm taking so the majority of your code that you write, and for the first 10 years of my career, I would write while I was in a flow state. And a flow state is like a subhuman language state. You are at a state where you're operating at a level that your brain is no longer thinking in terms of like human words. This is not a hand. This is something else when you're in a float state. I don't know what it is, but because it's actually very difficult to sort of um, transfer every piece of information. Like the word hand just does not fully at all capture what this thing does, right? This can do so many things. It's just well beyond what the phrase or the word human English American word hand means. So until yesterday, like I would say until like 5 years ago, I thought that translating from one human language to another, so like English to Spanish, Spanish to Chinese, whatever, was just a matter of vocabulary. So the Chinese have a word for hand, we have a word for hand, the Spanish has a word for hand, Portuguese has a word for hand, Italian, French, all those have a word for hand, and we just translate that. But the problem is it's just not true. It's not even close to true. There are so many concepts in different languages that don't have a direct translation into um, English and vice versa. So that is an issue. And I never realized until yesterday, the same goes with flow state. Like information and the way things work in flow state does not always have a direct translation into human language. So when I'm trying to, like, the reason I'm moving through this so slowly is because I'm trying to convert my knowledge that I have, my flow state understanding knowledge, where I can build things in flow state into human readable language. I would say it was probably about 5 years ago that I realized that when you write code, you have two audiences. One is the computer that is going to take your code and do whatever it is you tell it, and the other is the human beings that are going to read that code and try to maintain or understand it in the future. Um, so, so like you have it that makes coding much, much more difficult. It literally makes coding like at least 10 times, maybe 100 times, maybe infinitely more difficult because you are trying to write code for humans and for computers, and either one of them is hard enough. Writing stories that people can understand what you're saying is difficult, and then writing code that computers can understand what you're saying is difficult, and then writing code that people and computers can understand is a lot more difficult. So I was like, oh, okay, that's all I'm trying to do is go down into my sort of slow things down, understand what's happening in that sort of flow state, primal state, and then transcribe that into English. And as of yesterday, I realized that's not actually possible. There are concepts in flow state that cannot be transcribed into English. They just don't exist in English. So you know, that's a good thing for me to know because I've been wondering, like, why the F is this taking so long? Literally, what would take me, I could do in like 3 minutes, what would take me 10 hours to do it in the way I'm doing things right now, where I'm trying to do it in English. And that's because flow state has certain things that English just doesn't have, that human language just doesn't have. So, anyways, it's good to know that. Anyways, the new feature that I'm trying to implement is this, where basically we close this, open this, update this, and if I resize, this will automatically resize. So we've been working through things and moving through and realizing, oh, okay, there's foundational pieces, there's things that may need to be reused and all that. So we've been building that as we go. And as of yesterday, we were to the point where we know when we want to update it, and now we're trying to implement the how we're going to update it. And then this is the last piece that Flow State never seems to think about, but like when you go through the PR process and all that, people often think about is like this code that currently is building this thing out as we speak, um, probably is maybe not needed or needs to be modified in some way or something like that. Um, it seems like everything, the reason we have this in here is because we want to do something after the view is knitted. But do we really want to do something after the view is knitted? No. Couldn't care less if the view, who cares about the life cycle hook? It's just a life cycle hook indicates that the DOM element likely exists, depending on how we've implemented things. Well, in this code, it looks like um, we're gonna pass in. We're checking to see if the DOM element exists. So I'm thinking that this might not even be needed. Like we might be able to just comment all of this out because this is happening anyways. And we could kind of like we have a console log somewhere, um, like console.log after view init. And I think it does sort of release me of some of my obligation while I was what what I was trying to do while I was working on this, because one of the things that I just had in my mind is that I would be able to take anything that I worked on and convert it to English language, and then sometimes I might run into things that I couldn't convert into English language, and then that was, very disturbing to me. So it is weird that we do get this ng after view knit because I don't feel like we've even created a Viz component yet. Like, why is Viz component even running at this point? Because it doesn't. We haven't. We don't have any visualizations. Oh, okay. So that was old. That's why. Okay. So now when we add one, okay. So we get this ng after view in it, and then we get a viewport changed right after, right? So like it looks like this guy could probably just do the job of that guy. I mean, this guy can do the job that's being done while this guy's doing it, um, which is a good thing. But and then one thing to keep in mind, and it is weird because like the viewport hasn't changed. It's weird that that is coming across, um, and it is to me indicative of like some sort of underlying bug or oddity inside of the browser that we can't that we're going to sort of leverage off of, and then we can't necessarily always depend on. Like someone may go, hey, the viewport doesn't change, so let's not do that. Whatever's causing this viewport change to happen, um, I'm pretty sure I set up like an event listener. That event could be like someone might say, hey, we're only going to fire that event when the viewport actually changes. Like it doesn't make sense that we say viewport changed and they're the same. So same, because I think we're only listening for width and height. Maybe there's other changes. I don't know. But um, if someone were to come in and say, oh, wait, the viewport didn't change, so we're not going to fire that event, it would actually break our code because we're leveraging off of that. And that is a standard thing that you don't have any choice but to do at times. Um, so a lot of times there's doing that. So see, after viewing it, viewport change. So it seems like there's no reason for once we get it updating this and drawing this whenever the viewport changes, it doesn't seem like we're going to need this anymore. And that's a sort of an analysis that people don't really think about and leads to a lot of like very, very confusing extra code that is shouldn't be there. Um, so like when we resize this thing, and this kind of leads to another. So you see how it changed over and over and over again in all kinds of different ways. All kinds of sizes changed: 806, 504, 554, 524, just all kinds of stuff, right? Like, um, and the thing is, um, this thing just fires over and over again. Um, and I think it can fire. I think in my personal experience, it's going to change based on your computer and all kinds of stuff. But in my personal experience, it generally will fire about 200 times per second. But the screen only updates about oh, um, 66 times per second. So it's changing 3 times more than the screen is updating, which can cause some serious problems. And that's why, and that's the whole point to this code here. Um, where is it? Request animation frame. So this is a function that's a special function that really is extremely helpful, which is saying, hey, I want you to do something, but I only want you to do it when you update the animation frame. So like I was saying, this will get called 3 times. This whole thing gets called 3 times every time the screen updates. Um, so basically, it's just saying, hey, hold off and let's basically do that when the screen updates. Um, so some people would call that throttling. Some people might call that debouncing. There are, throttling is saying, hey, slow things down to once every 60 seconds or 60 times a second. The other debouncing is, hey, wait till this happens and then do it. Um, it's just one of those things that is a really odd thing, and the naming structure is very unfortunate because the word request has um, different meanings in English depending on what sort of background you have, like whether you grew up like in a working class or in a leadership class or whatever. So that can get really confusing for people to try to understand this in English, because it has like sort of different meanings. Um, but anyway, so now we have this, and what I would like it to actually do is update the dimensions, but I don't want it to always update the dimensions. I only want it to update it if the new width and height is equal to the current width and height. Now the thing is that um, I think we never set current width and height, if I remember correctly. Let's see, probably have a console log. Yeah, so we're updating the old one and the new one. So let's see, uh, old width, and then comma this dot old height, and then clear. And then let's go to this view here, and then let's go here, add this, and then see it's just saying 0, 0. As we change this and we move to different things, it just stays at 0, 0, and we're looking for that 0, 0. So we do need it to change. We need it to be able to, because it's always 0, so it's always going to think that there's a new one. So that is the next thing. Now, is it obvious? Probably not. Um, like this is probably something I just sort of learned over time. But let's go to our update dimension handler, and basically we only want to change this when we actually update it. So, and that we're only going to actually update it when it actually has a render view child. So basically, dot. Okay, so that's kind of a bummer because, okay, so this returns true. Okay, so we're going to want this to return a true. So updated should be true if we actually updated it, right? So true. So now we return the true, and so now wherever the updated signal handler comes in, gets called. We're going to go there, and we're going to set this to a variable. Const updated. Now there are people that will give you lots of great reasons why you should use const and let and all that, and they're like very legitimate. But honestly, to me the biggest reason to use const versus let is just to when during maintenance time, and when you look back, so you can know if it says const that you haven't that it's not going to be updated. That value is not going to be updated someplace else, right? It's just like, okay, I don't have to worry. There's a whole bunch of things I don't have to worry about because I know this doesn't get updated. Later on, if I try to change it and it gets updated, then there's like, that's sort of an indicator that, oh, we need to think a little more closely before we try to tweak this thing. Because when this was built originally, it was assumed that it would be a constant. So certain assumptions were made, so we need to now go look and determine. So basically, if it's updated, right? So we know that it got updated. And so, and we're probably going to want to change this. And the only reason I know I want to change this is because I know this is going to be a biatch to unit test. So, but basically for now, we're just going to say this dot old width is equal to viz width. So basically we've done our update and now we're resetting it. Now we would do it in this update dimension signal handler, but the update dimension signal handler um, doesn't have the context, does not know what this is. We purposely did that because that it makes that function a lot easier to unit test. So now, in theory, we should start seeing values in our um, update. Now, a lot of developers, and probably for most of my career, I would have actually um, um, just assumed that it works, and that's pretty good idea. So this is wrong, right? So we know that viz didn't exist. Now, it is weird that the viz, it's just so weird to me, the viz component. So viz component is being created. So that's probably not a good thing, right? There are no viz components. So I'm thinking that if we come over here, we clear, we hit reload. Yeah, see, viz component doesn't ever get called. So that's a bug for sure. I would call that a bug, and the viz component gets created. Now the user can't actually, the user can't actually even perceive it, right? Um, but it's a thing, and at some point we're gonna have to get around that. But that's gonna be part of a bigger issue. Like I think what we would want to do at that point is if you're in edit mode and none exists, we probably should show like a little message that says, hey, there aren't any. Would you like to create one? And then show that one. That would be the ideal thing to do. So I don't really want to go down the whole path of making that work perfectly at this point because whatever we do will likely need to be torn completely down and may cause a lot of problems that we don't want to have. Probably not, but it might. Um, so anyways, now we've created our view commit and it didn't change and it never even got called here. And I think that's only because that gets called when that function gets called when it gets changed and it's not getting changed. I don't know, maybe. Let's change views. Okay, we're still at 0, 0, 820, 47. Now what I'm hoping is that when I change this, yeah, so now we're seeing that these are in fact changing. So In this point where the viewpoint, we were at 744 and 524, but now we're at 751 and 1057. So now we're doing the update dimensions and we want to change it from 736 or from 744 to 736. We want to leave, and this one stays the same, right? So that is all working as expected. In like, I guess the thing is like probably without any words and all that, I probably could have got this working and all that, but I need to make sure that it works in human English American language, not just in um, computer language. So I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm adding all this extra code, all this extra overhead, just so that it can be um, what do you call it when we convert one from one language to another language? So it can be interpretable for humans. If all we cared about was it being interpretable for computers, we wouldn't have to do all this. We could just sit there and just write a bunch of if-thens and then on top of that, we're adding a bunch of stuff just so that unit tests can be executed. And I know that getting this updated to be true is going to be a pain in the butt. So we don't want to use branching. We want to use uh, uh, functions over branching, methods over branching. So I would rather call a new function with the word updated in it. So uh, update this dot, oh my gosh, this dot update, and I think we will typically call this a cache. Cache. No, cache isn't the right word though. Update old. And it's just like, you don't know what you're doing. It's just telling me. And basically we're going to say updated. And we're going to send the biz width. And this dot biz height. And basically this is all we're going to do is in that code. But instead of I'm just going to put it right here just so it's easier to code for now. Hopefully I remember to move it under the I find it to be a lot easier to maintain the code if all of the hooks are, all the event lifecycle hooks are there, are right after the constructor. And I'm going to have this Boolean, and it's just going to return updated because that's what we do. Updated, and then width, which is a Boolean, width, which is a number, and height. And I'm not 100% sure on context here, which is a number. If we're going to have to bind this in some way, or if it, we'll know what this is. And then we're going to return updated. So basically, all we expect it to do is return what it got. And then this is width. Dink. And it's width. And height. So literally all of this code here is so that this just gets called. I don't have to worry about trying to make this call. I know that if when the effect will fire, it always fires, and that at least it will fire with nothing, and that then I can write unit tests where I pass this a true, a number, and it updates this and returns whatever it got. So just I know that I can write unit tests that do all this. That's the only reason we're doing that. So like in some ways, so now it's like not only are we writing code so that the computer can understand, writing code so that humans can understand, we're also writing codes that's literally only there so that the unit tests can be executed. And then we'll probably end up adding some more markup and stuff like that for the end-to-end test to be able to run. So we are serving many, many masters here, which is very frustrating if you become very good at flow state development, because like the flow when you're in flow state, you don't care about unit tests. You don't care about um, human beings being able to translate it. You don't care about end-to-end tests being able to execute things. Uh, it just makes the job literally like the job is very difficult. And learning how to code in that flow state and be able to get things done is takes a lot of work. It takes like 2 to 3 years of serious conditioning to get there. And then once you get there, that's not good enough. Now you need to make sure that it's like other people can maintain it. And then that's not good enough. Now you need to make sure that unit tests can be executed. And then that's not good enough. Now you need to make sure that end-to-end tests can be executed. And then that's not good enough because then they want you to be able to write the unit tests before you even write the test. Like just the desperation to make the code maintainable is very, very, it's a desperate situation. Um, all right, so now we are updating our new width, old width. We're doing all that stuff, and maybe we can actually consider. Okay, and then I want to move this. At this point, it's very, very easy to move this stuff. It's kind of a pain in the butt trying to do it, trying to like, it's so much easier just to be able to look up and make the changes that you want. And so now, this is probably not very interesting to the vast majority of people on the internet. Literally, there's literally probably less than 5,000 people in the world that would find any of this even the slightest bit interesting. And then, YouTube will decide to show it to maybe 3 people who would find this interesting. And then they will do for whatever reason they will not show this to those other people, and who freaking cares? Um, but here we go. So now at this point we have our update dimension signal handler, we have our native element, and then what we want it to do is pass this update dimensions. We want to go to update dimensions. Update dimensions also gets called from here. No, render in native component visualization service. Maybe, oh, okay, so I was calling it from here. And then apparently this kind of does the same thing. So I wonder at the end of the day if we will end up getting rid of all that code and just calling this. I don't even know what this does. Let's go look. Yeah, so this ends up doing almost the exact same thing. Oh, but see, oh no, this actually creates it to begin with. Okay, so actually we will need to do it because this, so let's write that now. Okay, so this is where the component, the element is actually created. And then this is where it's updated. And it's just so much easier to get those comments like at this point. But the goal is to then call update dimensions at this point and hope that that works. And I'm a little bit, I have to admit, I'm a little bit worried that, why do I need the current width and current height? Oh, so that I could check. Okay. New width, new height. Current width. And so I have definite or old width and old height. So I changed names and I think it does make sense. I might end up regretting that. Maybe I'll, yeah, I think I'm gonna change it. Let's try to 99 times out of 100, it's better to go with the same name. Like while you're in flow state, it makes total sense to have different names, but like outside of flow, and this whole like in flow state, out of flow state is a brand new concept with me, and I would say that it's probably got a 50% chance of being right. Like something that I stick with. There's a good chance that I won't. That I'll be like, oh, okay, that's incomplete or wrong or whatever, but that's just where I'm at right now. Um, so I'm wondering if this is going to be hard to test. I don't think so because I can pass in the render child or okay, so this is an element. That's not even, oh, no. Okay, it's an element reference, not an element. This is the actual element. Okay. So this is the big moment. I think if it may work. If my understanding is actually complete, this might actually work, or it might be broken. I may have an incomplete understanding, so that's not broken. No, why did you not do it? What is your problem? All right, let's see. Did we see anything weird in our Nope. Everything seems right here. So let's see. Update dimensions. Then it should call this, and then this should tell it to update this style. Now, maybe that isn't enough to, I don't know. So is maybe, so 751 by 554. And that actually, okay, so this is 735, but the actual canvas item is 751 by 754. So something else actually updates this. So we have a div that's surrounding this that is the right height, but the canvas itself is not. So we do not understand how this canvas gets updated. And it might be that, so I don't know. I guess we don't actually have the concept of the one lower level. So okay, so yeah, I was kind of hoping that there would be some sort of thing that would be like, oh, um, my outer div is this, but the thing is that canvas itself gets updated or needs to be updated, and I don't actually know how that works. I don't even know how to figure that out. So a viz component. See, the problem is okay. So this component service render in native element. Go to definition. What it does is it actually creates this. this render service get renderer ID, and then this thing goes in here and it actually it renders it from scratch. It does this set size, renderer set size, and then it renders it from scratch. But because the whole concept of resizing didn't exist yet, so now we're uh, obviously the outer dimensions of the element that holds it has to be right, but now we need to actually update the render DOM element. So renderer set size. If renderer and renderer set what? Well, maybe not. Maybe this doesn't. Oh, it says append child. Okay, so here we actually, this is where a brand new, well, where we append a DOM to, and I don't think we need to append a new DOM element. Okay, so there's this render which renders by ID. So and it's an ST side, so that's our stuff. So we'll go to this definition and see if it sets a width and height. So so here it actually, oh no, this aspect ratio. Oh, okay, yeah, this is where it actually, this is where it figures out what the aspect ratio that's supposed to be. So I think that's good. I'm hoping maybe maybe this can be called by itself, get scene. See, the element's already been appended. We just want to update the width and the height of it. And that concept doesn't exist at all. And I'm not exactly sure how we're going to get that to work. So this is a complete unknown. I'm in complete chaos right now. And I'm thinking that the reason I'm in complete chaos is maybe because there are not actual human English words for what I'm trying to accomplish right now. Maybe that is the feeling I'm having right now, and I've just never recognized what this feeling was. But basically, we have this render by ID, which will set the aspect ratio, which is what needs to be done. The problem is that nowhere in here does it actually set the width and the height. Here we have a renderer, which is an actual 3D renderer, and we set the size and the width. But then we go ahead and append the child, which I don't think we need to. Element ref, native element. See, it's already appended, so I don't think we need to do this line. We only want to do this line if it has been already executed. And then I mean, we only want to do this if it's never been appended. So this is our element ref, which is, where does element ref even come from? Oh, okay, so that gets passed into the renderer. So I'm guessing that this right here is the actual element, and we've changed the size of this element ref, I believe. So we can do this like console.log element ref. Oh shoot, it's 9. Element ref. All right, so tomorrow, we should be able to see this console log and then mouse over and see our element ref and different things. And my guess is that this is already done. So we don't want to do this. So the easiest thing in the world would be to pass in another thing that says whether to update this or not, like, and default it to true. So whatever is already using it does that. The problem is that's going to be very, very difficult to unit test. Um, and much more difficult to maintain, which maybe both of those kind of go hand in hand. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.